So you're a complete beginner and want to join a worship team in just 5 days. Maybe you're overwhelmed with scales, chords, inversions, and all you want is a step-by-step daily plan that's actually practical, that removes the concepts you don't actually need to know, so you can go from beginner to on the team in just 5 days. Maybe we get to a high moment. Starting to build. So let's go. Day 1. Right away, I want to get practical so you can come away from today with something you feel proud of. By the end of day 1, you'll be able to play the basics of hundreds of worship songs. So we're going to look at Waymaker. So let's look at our chord chart. At the top of the page, you'll notice Waymaker, key of C. Before we go any further, let's talk about what a key is, because that's the foundation of music. A key is a group of notes or chords that sound really good together. These are typically played in what's called a scale. You might remember learning scales as a kid in music classes growing up, and maybe like me, you hated learning them. All scales is how we determine which notes sound good together. We're going to number these notes that sound good together, and that number system is going to become incredibly important to modern worship music. So make sure you don't skip this scales and numbers part. So to build a scale, we follow a pattern of whole steps and half steps. I'll explain what those are in just a moment. Now, the pattern for a scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. 7 different steps for 7 different notes that make up what's called a key. Okay, so what is a half step? A half step is when 2 notes are just 1 tile away. A whole step is when they're 2 tiles away. So I'll start with an example in the key of G using a G scale, and then we'll move back to Waymaker and learn the key of C. So if we were in the key of G doing a G scale, G would be our beginning note. So here's G. As the first note, we could number it 1 if we wanted. So G it's going to be called the 1, and then we do a whole step, which again, like I said, is 2 tiles. So if we were to move up 1 tile, this would be G sharp, another tile brings us to A. Now we'd move up another whole step based on that pattern. So we're going to go up 1, 2 tiles again. Now we're at B, and now we do a half step, so just 1 tile. Next we do another whole step, which is 2 tiles. Then another whole step, which is 2 tiles. Another whole step, which is 2 tiles. There's our first black key, and then we end on a half step, which is just 1 tile, and we end on the G back to our 1 that we started on. So these are the notes that sound good in the key of G. If I play something out of the key, it doesn't sound as good. So these 7 notes, we could number them. 1 for G, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. In modern worship music, a lot of times leaders, if they are in the key of G, might refer to the 1 instead of saying G. So we just built the G scale, but I'll also have a chart on the screen that shows the notes in other commonly used keys. You can see that some keys have more sharps than others, and that means they have more black notes, which makes them a little bit more difficult. And you might notice that the key of C has no sharps, so that's normally where I recommend beginners start learning, because then you don't have to worry about hitting any of these black notes. So let's try doing a C scale, which has all the notes that we'll be using for Waymaker. Now to get used to what we're going to be doing with our left hand down the road, I'm going to start by playing octaves with my left hand. An octave is when you play 2 of the same notes, 1 higher and 1 lower. So it's literally 8 notes apart. That's called an octave. Same if we were to do D, that would be an octave. Since the scale starts on a C note, I'm going to play a C octave with my pinky and thumb in my left hand. So here's how I build a scale. We start on the 1, which is C. We move up a whole step, 2 tiles to D. Move up another whole step, 2 tiles to E. Half step, 1 tile to F, a whole step, 2 tiles to G, a whole step, 2 tiles to A, a whole step, 2 tiles to B, and then we resolve on the 1, a half step up, back to our C. Again, if we were to number them, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The next thing I notice when I look at the chord chart are some letters above the words, and those are what are called chords. They're placed loosely above which word will be sung when you play it. You can see on this chord chart that the chords for the verse are going to be F, C, G, and A, M. So what do we do with those? Well, to build a chord, there's a simple pattern, so we'll start with our F chord. We're going to start on our F, and then we're going to put 3 tiles of space between our next finger. Got 1, 2, 3 tiles. That puts us at A to put 3 tiles in the middle. And then we're going to put 2 tiles of space between our next finger. 2 more tiles puts us at C. So we've got F, A, C. That would be an F chord. Now if we were to build a C chord, I would do the same thing. We'd start on C. I'm going to put 3 tiles of space. 1, 2, 3. That puts me at E. Then I'm going to put 2 tiles of space between my next fingers. 1, 2. Okay. There's our C chord. Now for G, I'm going to start on G. We're going to put 3 tiles of space. 1, 2, 3. That's a B. then we'll put 2 tiles of space, D. So we've got G, B, D for our G chord. The next chord we see is an A with a little M beside it. What does the M mean? All that little M means is minor. So most of the chords we just built are called major chords, and when you see a little M, that means it's a minor chord. Now, to build a minor chord, we're gonna do a similar pattern, but we're just gonna flip-flop. So instead of 3 tiles between the first 2 notes and 2 tiles between the next 2 notes, we're gonna do 2 tiles and then 3 tiles. So let's start with our A minor. We can start at A, and if we were to put 2 tiles of space, that's a C there. And if we were to put 3 tiles of space, that puts us at an E. So we've got A, C, E. And as you're building these chords, I would also put left-hand octaves of whatever the note is. So if we were building this A minor, A, C, E, I would put in your left hand the octave A. Same with when we did our F chord and we built it. So any chord you build, make sure that you match it with octaves in your left hand. So here's what the verse sounds like if we were to just do those chords we just learned. You did it. You just played all the notes in the song Waymaker. And not only that, but you played all the chords in literally hundreds of worship songs. Now you may have heard that most worship songs just have 4 chords, or you may have even heard of the 1, 4, 5, and 6, but what does that mean? In the key of C, as we look at Waymaker, you'll notice that the chords are F, C, G, and A minor, and those would also be referred to as 4, 1, 5, and 6. If we look at Blessed Be Your Name, the chords are C, G, A minor, F, which are 1, 5, 6, and 4. And if we looked at Reckless Love, the chords would be A minor, G, F, and C, which is 6, 5, 4, and 1. Are you noticing a pattern? Hundreds of worship songs use the first, 4th, 5th, and 6th chords of a key. So if you want to be able to play hundreds of worship songs, I would pick one key. I'd start with the key of C if you're just beginning, and then learn the 1, 4, 5, and 6 of that key. In this case, I would learn the C, F, G, and A minor chords. And then I would Google chord charts for your favorite worship songs in those keys and start plucking them out. But anyways, you don't have to worry about learning all those keys yet. For now, I would just focus on this song list here and start learning all these songs in the key of C using these 4 main chords. You did it. You just finished day 1 and learned the foundations of music and piano. Knowing chords is huge, but you might notice once you've started learning a few songs with this method that your hands have to move pretty far to change between transitions, and it can give it a pretty basic sound. In day 2, I'm going to show you how the secret to not moving your hands so much isn't just to play faster, but it's actually to not move at all. Welcome to day 2. On day 1, you crushed it learning chords, and today I'm going to teach you the secret to making chords way easier. Today we're going to use the song Reckless Love in the key of C as our example. I'll have the chord chart link in the description below so you can follow along just like yesterday. Now the chords are A minor, G, F, and C. I would go ahead and pause this video and see if you can build those 4 chords using the 3-tile, 2-tile method that we learned from day 1. Now, if we were to just play our basic chords, A minor, G, F, and C, it would sound like this. Which is fine, but could definitely sound smoother and less choppy. The typical thing instructors would teach at this point are inversions. And inversions are so important that I do have a separate video on them. But for week 1 of piano, I think there's an even faster version that will get you up and running more effectively and sounds a lot better. Our thumb and pinky are literally not going to move at all, and I think our chords are going to sound a lot better. Most worship songs use only 4 chords, the 1, 4, 5, and 6, in varying orders. Reckless Love is no exception. It uses the 6, which is A minor, the 5, which is G, the 4, which is F, and the 1, which is C. Here are the shortcut chord formations that work for practically all modern worship songs. For the 1 chord of any song, since we're in the key of C, our 1 chord would be C, and I would play the 1, 3, and 5, or the C, E, and G. So here's what that sounds like. 1, 3, and 5. For the 4 chord, in this case F, I would play the 1, 4, and 5. So my pinky and thumb are going to stay here, and I'm going to use my 4th finger to play the 4th note of the key. That would be my F chord. For the 5 chord, in this case G, I would do 1, 2, and 5. And again, I'm using my 2nd finger. My pinky and thumb are still in the same spot. 1, 2, 5. And then for the 6th minor chord, which in this case is A minor, I would do the 1, 3, and 5 of the key, just like our 1 chord. But but I'm playing the 6 with my left hand or the A with my left hand octaves. You can memorize these formations and they'll work for essentially all modern worship songs. If you notice, our thumb and pinky are staying in the same spot the whole time. They haven't moved. And if you can believe it, these are more complex chords than the ones I showed you yesterday, and they're way easier to play. For the technically curious, we actually made the 4 chord into a 4 add 2. We made the 5 chord into a 5 suspended or a 5 sus. We made the 6 minor chord into a 6 minor 7th chord, and we kept the 1 as a plain 1. But anyways, you don't have to worry about any of those or what those mean for week 1. Just note the simple formations I showed you. Now, if we were to play through Reckless Love, this is what those formations would sound like. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. So for homework, I would play through the song Reckless Love using these easier chords, and then pick 2 other songs from this list and also play through them in the key of C using these inversions you just learned. So we've played Reckless Love. Now you may have been realizing it's hard to build a song dynamically just using the same chords for an entire song. What do? Play the chords, but just faster and louder? There's got to be a better way to build the worship piano. So that's what we're going to learn in day 3. Welcome to day 3. So we've learned worship chords the traditional way. We've learned the more complex yet easier way, but these triads and chords still aren't giving your piano the full modern worship sound that you're wanting. Today, I'm going to show you one even easier trick than yesterday to make your worship piano playing sound more like this. Now this trick is called the Lord method, and it's really split in half. The first part talks about your left hand, and the second part talks about what your right hand is doing. I'm going to demonstrate with the song King of My Heart. Now we're in the key of G for this song today. The first 2 days, we did the key of C, which has no sharps, so it's all white keys. And now we're going to move to the key of G, which has 1 sharp and F sharp. But don't worry, this method I'm going to teach you makes it so easy no matter what key you're in. Since we're in the key of G, if we were to build out our scale, our notes are going to be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. So the 1 is G, 2 is A, 3, B, and so on. For this method today, we're going to take particular note of the 1st and the 5th notes of the key. In this case, G and D. So let's start with the left hand. L-O in the Lord method stands for left hand octaves. This is a method I've already sort of been teaching the last 2 days, but when you're looking at a song like King of My Heart, when I see a chord, my left hand is just going to play octaves of whatever chord it is. So if we were at the chorus, I would play with my left hand octaves with the E, octaves of the D, octaves of the C, octaves of the G. Now with the right hand, we're going to do the R and the D of the Lord method. The R stands for root of the key. The root is similar to a tree root in that everything grows from it. Since we're in the key of G, G is the root note, or also referred to as the 1. The great thing about the root note is that it's going to sound good no matter what point of the song you're in. So listen to this G while I play the rest of the chords. Even if I was to play a 2 minor chord, or a 3 minor, you'll notice how that note always sounds good in the key. Now, the D stands for dominant of the key. The dominant note is just a fancy term for the 5th note of a key. In this case, since we're in the key of G, the 5th note, or the dominant, is D. Another way to think of this method, instead of root dominant, is the 1-5 method, because we're the 1-5 of the key. Now that alone is intriguing, because for an entire song, you could literally just play the 1 and 5 of a key with your right hand, while your left hand does octaves. At any point, if you ever get lost in a song, this is a method I teach people for staying in a mix and still filling things out. So if I got lost in the middle of King of My Heart, I could literally just resort to the 1 and 5. Now the beauty of this trick is how you can use it to build at a powerful moment. So there are a few ways you can spice this method up. 1, like I was just doing, instead of just playing whole note chords, you can start to play half note, quarter note, or 8th note chords of the 1-5. And you could also play 5-1, so I could put the 5 on the bottom. So I could do D, G over here. And maybe you move up slowly during the song. So maybe you start on the 1-5 here, and maybe you move up to the 5-1, up to the 1-5. And not only just the 1-5 or the 5-1, but you could stretch your hand to a 1-5-1 or a 5-1-5 to play really great sounding arpeggios at big moments. The 1-5-1, this is what I would be. An arpeggio, I would go up, I could also go down, so I'm going to go the other way now. Or I could go in, out. Outer two notes and my inner note. So on King My Heart, maybe for the first chorus, I would do the 1 and 5 down here in a lower range. Maybe I move up. You are good. Start to build it. Oh, maybe we get to a high moment. Starting to build. You are good, good. Oh, you are good. You can really hear how that sounds really good dynamically. And then we drop to a low moment. Back to our original 1-5. So for homework, I would pick a song like King of My Heart in the key of G or C. You can pick whichever key. And then try to build this song up dynamically using some of these Lord method tricks. During what part of a song should you use the Lord method? What part of a song should you play chords? When do you build? How do you build? In day 4, I'm going to take you through my template, how the vast majority of worship songs build so that you can know what technique to use and when. Day 4. Welcome to day 4. By the end of today, you're going to be able to build big, powerful choruses and bridges dynamically. Worship music is thankfully a very easy genre of music, and over the last 13 years, I've noticed some patterns and templates that pop up regularly in the genre. I'm going to take you step by step through each part of a song and show you how I would build a typical modern worship song. Today, I'm going to demonstrate using Waymaker in the key of C, and the chord chart is linked in the description below so you can follow along. Today, I'll walk you through how to do it if all you have is a regular keyboard, but I do have another version of this lesson where I walk you through how to use sounds to build really dynamically and which sounds I would recommend for just $25. Let's walk through the pattern I would use for almost any modern worship song. Let's start where most songs do, at an intro. So you'll notice I'm playing low on the keyboard and I'm sort of mimicking the upcoming melody. And if you ever have a hard time finding a melody, you could pluck it out and try to play it by ear, or you could also try to YouTube it and see if you can find a tutorial. Oftentimes you might have to translate to your own key, so just be aware of that. Now, verse 1 normally stays relatively low. I'm going to stay on whole notes with my left hand and right hand, and I'll probably play the inversions that we learned in day 2. I like to give, especially verse 1, you're just giving space so that the main melody of the lead vocal can really be caught. Now chorus 1 normally drops out a little bit, and there's a little pad trick that I show in the other video, but if you were just playing a normal keyboard, I would transition from doing the inversion chords into doing just the 1-5. And again, this is just giving a little bit more space than we'd already given for the melody. So normally chorus 1, you're doing 1-5 with the right hand, the Lord method. Now, verse 2. Verse 2 typically begins to drive a little more. Our left hand will start on half notes and then start to shift to quarter notes toward the end of the verse 2. And normally I would insert some sort of rhythmic movement in the right hand. So in this case, and a lot of cases, a 1-2-5 of the key is a great little arpeggio riff. Here's what that would sound like. Now chorus 2, we've normally start to build a little bit, so it's normally bigger, and similar to how vocalists will often sing low at a verse or the first part of a song, and then they begin to jump an octave, we're going to be mimicking that with our keyboard. And this simple change can add a lot. So I'm going to move my right hand up an octave from where we just were, and I'm going to play the inversion chords that we learned. I'll keep my left hand where it already was though. And I'll do half notes now instead of whole notes. That is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Okay, instrumental. After chorus 2, normally there's a dropout into an instrumental before the upcoming bridges. Similar to what we did in the intro, we're going to mimic the melody of the upcoming bridge, and we're going to move back down to the lower octave that we began in. Bridge 1. Okay, so our bridges have started. I'm going to shift from playing the melody. I'm going to go back to the 1-5 Lord method to give space again for the melody to take over. And I'm just doing whole notes. Bridge 2, I'm going to start playing chords. Bridge 3, we're going to shift up an octave with our right hand, half notes instead of whole notes. Maybe you start to get to quarter notes towards the end of it. Bridge 4 is normally the biggest of the bridges, and one method that I really like to do for big moments of songs is what I call right hand octave melody. So we're going to play with our right hand literally octaves of the melody. I won't do the full on melody, but sort of a modified melody, and I'll be playing with my left hand quarter note octaves following the chords. Here's what that would sound like. That really fills in and creates a solid dynamic build, and I love that it really emphasizes the melody of whatever's going on. Now, if your church does more or less bridges than 4, that's totally fine. Just condense or expand to make this fit into your time frame. Okay, big chorus. So finally, we break into the biggest chorus of the song. We're going to fully send, continuing our left hand with quarter note octaves, and we're going to arpeggiate the 1-5-1 or the 5-1-5 with the right hand. This method is so simple because your hand isn't even moving at all, yet the melodic motion creates incredible harmony for big moments, like a final chorus or a final bridge. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. After the big chorus, we'll drop out into a light chorus to end the song. Left hand is going to do whole note octaves. Right hand is going to shift down and do the Lord method, just 1-5 whole notes. And then if you do an outro to the song, often you could play the melody of the chorus or the bridge or the verse. And you can vamp on those chords however long your church does outros for. Now we're going to transition to the song in a new key. And normally keys players are the ones the team is counting on to transition from one key to the next. I'll walk you through a basic transition. So we're going to hold out the 1 of the key with our sustain pedal. So in this case, we're in the key of C. I would hold out the 1 and 5. So I would hold C with my left hand, 1 and 5 with my right hand. Once your outro is done, hold that with your sustain pedal. Then whoever has backing pads, if that's you, I would adjust your backing pad. If it's someone else, I would wait for them to change to the next key. And then as soon as that change happens, now you can let go of your sustain pedal and then hold down the 1 of the new key. So let's say we were shifting to key of A. and then I'm gonna hold that down. And that creates a really smooth transition, especially when there's a backing pad in there. So there you have it. This is a dynamic pattern that's gonna work for 90% of modern worship songs. Your homework for today, I would run through Waymaker using these methods that I just taught you, and then I would find another song on this list and run through it using similar dynamics for verse 1, verse 2, choruses, bridges, and see how you can build the song up. Now these dynamics all add a ton, but how do you remember it all? What about backing pads? This all brings us to our next area of focus for our final day, and that's how to bring all of this together for a Sunday. What's the easiest way to learn a set? In day 5, I'll walk you through my 4-step pray method to learning any worship song and set easy. Day 5, you made it, we're on the last day. So we've walked through chords, the Lord method, arpeggios, how typical songs build, but how do we put it all together for Sunday? How should you practice? How do you take notes? And then how do you remember it all? What about backing pads that a lot of times keys players are counting on to control? For new beginners, we're gonna break all this down into 3 easy practice sessions that you can do during the week before Sunday. And then we'll go over what to do on a typical Sunday morning. Aside from practice sessions, I always recommend creating a personal Spotify playlist called Sunday Set List and adding to it the songs that you'll be doing for Sunday. You can change the set list from week to week that you're on and then listen and worship with it on repeat throughout the week to really get the songs in you. I normally listen to a few different versions of a song and find which one I like best, unless the worship leader has instructed a very specific version. Today, I'm going to use Living Hope as our example, and I personally like the Bethel version the best for that. For session 1, we're going to learn the first 2 songs of the upcoming set list, and we're going to begin taking notes. And I have a 4-letter acronym for this method called PRAY. The first 3 letters talk about how you'll learn a song and take notes, and then the final letter, Y, talks about how you should practice the songs. First, P. P stands for positions. I would determine the 4 chord shapes that you're going to be using when you play the chords of a song. And then I would also make sure to jot down what the 1 and 5 of the key that you're in are, so that you keep those in mind. Okay, so here's my chord chart, and I'm writing notes on an iPad, but if you have paper and pen, that's totally fine too, or paper and pencil, whatever. So above the 1, which is G, I might write over here, I'm going to zoom in, 1, 3, 5, or I could write the notes if I prefer, G, B, D. And for beginners, you might want to do this for all of the chords. So again, those inversions I taught you, if we were doing the 5 chord, which is D, I would do the 1, 2, 5, or I would do D, E, A, whatever makes the most sense for you. For C, do the same thing, 1, 4, 5, E minor, 1, 3, 5, and maybe you just do them for the first 4 chords, maybe you do them for every chord. And again, like I said earlier, I would do the 1 is G, the 5 is D, just so I know when I get to later on, if I want to do the Lord method or if I get lost, I know I can always play the G and D, and it'll sound good. Next, R stands for riffs. So begin to learn applicable intro parts, and if your team doesn't have an electric guitar player, I would also recommend listening to the electric guitar parts and finding any applicable lead lines or intros that the electric is doing. Now, take notes in a way that makes the most sense to you for learning these intros and lead lines. So for the song Living Hope, I hear an intro in the song and I would just try to pluck it out. Mental stretching creates mental flexibility. So if you want to grow, especially in playing by ear or hearing lead lines and intros, before looking up tutorials or trying to find it in other places, I would literally listen to the song on repeat and try to play it on your own keyboard. So for that intro that I just played, I would make a little note over here. I would put down the numbers so I know it's 5, 1, 5, 2, 1, 5, 1, 5, 4, 3. So I'm just going to write the numbers, but you could also write the specific notes. Sometimes even for these, I might even write like a mount. I know it goes high, goes back down, goes up a little higher, and back down. So I do something like that if I already sort of know the lead line, but I just need a visual reminder. Whatever method works best for you to remember your parts. All right, next, A stands for amplify. So plan through your dynamics and when and how you're going to build and drop throughout the song. Day 4, we talked about a typical template, and I'll be using a lot of those same principles here for this song. For Living Hope, I already put in my intro riff here. I put in my verse 1 inversions, but I might write low on the keyboard just so I remember to stay low for verse 1. As we get into instrumental, that's the same as the intro, so I might write again 5, 1, 5, 2, 1, 5, 1, 5, 4, 3, or I might do that same image. For verse 2, I would again do that riff that I taught you guys. 1, 2, 5, riff, arpeggio. And maybe towards the end of here, I would note these last 2 lines, half notes with left hand. If I want to build it a little bit into the chorus, I know that first time I'm going to do low to give space for the chorus, but I know at the big chorus, once it's big, I want to do the arpeggios 1, 5, 1. Now verse 3, typically I notice verse 3 starts really low, so I'm going to start Lord method. And then as it builds, second time up an octave. Okay, so I filled out my page with some notes. This gives me some directions I'm going through the song, and you can be as detailed as you'd like. Initially, you're probably going to have a lot more notes on the page, and as you become more familiar with keys playing, how to build, and your songs, you probably won't have as much on the page. Now, after we've taken all of those notes, Y stands for yoke. So at this point, we're going to run through the song with a metronome, and we're going to yoke ourselves to it at a slow tempo until we're comfortable with the song, and then we're going to keep ourselves yoked to the metronome as we move up the tempo to about 120% of the normal tempo of a song. BPM of Living Hope is 143, so I would start wherever you need, but maybe I'll start at 100 BPM, and then I would work up to 143 times 1.2, or roughly 170 BPM. Now I recommend the AutoPad app for the metronome because we use it for a backing pad as well. So if you're using AutoPad, this is what it looks like. You come over here to click, and this click, as you have it enabled, we're in the key of G, so I would put this G going, and you can hear the click rolling. So I'd move this tempo to about 100 to start. This gives you a starting point. Get comfortable with that, move it up about 10 BPM, move it up another 10. Once you reach 140, you're at the song tempo. And then you can keep going up until 170. And once you've got there, keep playing until you're comfortable playing at 120%. You've learned all the songs and you're able to play them comfortably at 120% tempo range. For this final session before Sunday, you should now run through the entire set with the metronome at normal speed. Pull up some backing pads. You can get some free ones on my website, and I recommend you use the pads with the app I just showed you, AutoPad, and then play the metronome through it simultaneously. Using a pad will smooth out your transitions and is a great way to get comfortable changing keys between songs. Play straight through the songs as much as possible without pausing, as if it was literally Sunday morning. If you miss a chord in the chorus, don't start over and try to hit it again. Just keep playing through as if you were literally playing and an audience was there. Now after a song is finished, resolve on the 1 of the key and then change your pad to the next song key, adjust the tempo of the song, and then start the intro of the next song if applicable. Follow this through for the entire set list. If you ever get lost during rehearsal or main set, just remember that you can always use the Lord method and 1-5 it out, and then catch up whenever you find out where the team is at. Maybe I got lost in Living Hope as we were building. I got lost, so now I might just do 1-5 until I find out, oh, we're in the chorus, okay. Overall, have fun. Playing on worship teams and messing up is the #1 way to get better at playing keys. Congratulations, you just made it through your first 5 days and are well on your way to onboarding to a worship team. Now, you may have gone through this and you're thinking, my keyboard still sounds really cheap. Your playing might be incredible, but when you aren't happy with the sound of your keyboard, it can really bring things down. To give your cheap keyboard the sound of a really nice grand piano, or to learn how to build a great worship rig from scratch, check out this video to up your worship keys sound instantly.